Hello and welcome to the Flat Pack, brought to you by the Racing Post, filmed here in the box in Leeds, normally downstairs in the bunker, but we've been promoted to the upstairs. The wide world is watching through the windows behind the camera as they are installing a karaoke system downstairs. That is the real reason. But we still got to do the show. We are under pressure to get this recorded in time. So let's look on the Mr. Bright side and do our very best. We were going to film it elsewhere. A few people suggested we go to a country house. Some of us tried to make us go to rehab, but we decided we're going to stick here because you've got to have faith, haven't you? Wonderwall. Anyway, we're going to do the show. It's Ross Brierley here in this wonderfully comfortable seat, joined by two of the finest minds in the karaoke business. It is, of course, Mr. Keith Melrose and Matt Gardner, returning to the show after a lengthy absence, gents, for slightly more enjoyable reasons on Matt's side. You've been in hospital, Keith.
Yeah, I got cut open and you went to Scotland.
Yeah, which arguably is, 5 to 6 each or two, isn't it? But you've already been to Scotland.
I have been to Scotland, yeah. It was very nice. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were, you're Scottish, right?
Yes, I am, yeah. I'm sorry, I was, I played it a bit too straight there, did I?
I'm just checking because Craig Forsyth, which was your replacement, isn't Scottish.
No, you told me he was Scottish, even though his accent was plainly that sort of just over the border accent that they have, which is strange. You literally, it's one town it sounds like Hawick, and the next town it sounds like Newcastle. It's really weird.
Yeah, I've known him for about 15 years. For some reason in my head, it's like, yeah, you're Scottish.
Is it because Berwick Rangers play in the Scottish League?
Yeah, I think it is.
Oh, is that why it is, right?
Even though I know full well that it's not in Scotland because you do cross the border and you're in Berwick. Mm-hmm. But in my head, I was like, well, they're in the Scottish League, so that counts, right?
Evidently not.
Evidently not. Well, welcome back, Keith. Your operation to get was it a heart? Was it courage? Which one was it? Which one are you?
Well, I had to sing the song as well, so your karaoke thing wounded me as well.
Yeah.
But no, I'm sorted now. We don't need to go into the details.
No, that's.
It's not ER.
Yeah, well, it's. I think we're called a casualty vibe, isn't it?
It is a bit more casualty vibe. Is Charlie going to turn up? Remember Charlie, the old nurse, who's been in for 30 years.
I hope so. Yeah. He'll be. He's going to our guest on the final show, and then we're going to have Tosh from the bill as well. He's gonna,
good old Tosh.
Good old Tosh. Speaking of Tosh, Matt Gardner joins us back on the show after a 2-week holiday.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you any cycling involved?
No, unfortunately not.
No,
not allowed.
Too many hills in Scotland, Scotland.
Yeah, York's very flat, so I'm not
I thought you went to the Borders. Hang on, let's get this. Which is it, Scotland or is it not? Where did you go on holiday?
Yeah, in the Borders.
Yeah.
There's still a few more hills than York, though. York's
But is it Scotland? You just said Scotland.
Yeah, the Borders is in Scotland.
Borders in Scotland.
Scottish Borders. The Borders National.
Yeah.
Kelso and that, and there's hills.
Just over the border.
They have the Southern Uplands in Scotland, which is like the whole of the south of Scotland's quite hilly.
Is it any surprise to you that I took history, not geography?
Not really.
No, not really. We should probably talk about racing eventually.
At some point.
Yeah, but it's nice to have you back. What would be your karaoke standard, Keith?
It would be either 20th Century Boy or It's Not Unusual, depending on how I'm feeling.
Nice, okay. Okay. Matt Gardner?
I did it once, and I did do Dancing in the Moonlight.
Did you? No.
I did, yeah.
God, I never get out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just going to stop the recording here so we can swear at Matt for 5 minutes and then we'll start it all over again. Dancing in the Moonlight. Do comment below what your karaoke standard would be and get involved. Like I said, they are installing it downstairs. So for the final show of the Flat Pack this season, it will simply be an hour of karaoke with no analysis whatsoever.
Ross is going to force us to. We're going to have to do Kiki D and Elton John, aren't we? Apparently,
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah,
And you're insisting on it.
I am. And later on, we'll be previewing the arc. No, it doesn't work. Anyway, look, we're going to do karaoke for the final show because I want to do it my way. All right?
I thought we'd finish this.
There's a counter going up in the bottom corner somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Dad'll put that in.
I mean, we might have to find a new venue for next year. I think maybe a Love Shack or
Flat Pack from the Love Shack.
yeah, Flat Pack from the Love Shack.
Oh.
Not sure.
Shudder.
Yeah.
Not sure it works. But let's get into the races, shall we? Starting off with one lesson learned. We had we've missed a few weeks. You've missed a few weeks. There's loads I want to ask you about, but we don't have time. So what did you learn from last week's racing? Of course, big 2-year-old week. Matt Gardner.
Yep.
Any big lessons for you?
Yeah, well, it's a general 2-year-old lesson, I suppose. In that this time of year, you really looking for next year's 3-year-olds as much as anything. We're kind of past that point of speed oriented 2-year-olds for the summer. Back end novices, horses running in group races that kind of aren't quite there yet, but there may be middle distance prospects for next season. So it's just that switch of gear, switch of your brain a little bit. And there's been a lot of talk about Aidan O'Brien possibly not having quite the strength of juvenile crop that he's had in previous years, or some quite not meeting expectations, but he has unleashed a load of really good middle distance prospects for next year. A couple of maiden winners at Alexandropolis and Espionage are both horses that you think in 10, 12 furlongs next year, big physique, all that sort of stuff. So it's as much just get the replays out, get your tracker out, and really kind of hone in on that for the next sort of 4 or 5 weeks.
And are these horses winning on debut?
One of them did win on debut.
Yeah.
Another one finished second and then went out and won. And then an O'Brien horse also finished second to that. So just look at pedigrees, look at where these horses are kind of in their development, very much with a view to sort of next summer. Somebody, the judge in the background agreed. He's very, very vocal about the proceedings. Anyway, what's your lesson, Keith Melrose?
It's when you think one's been laid out, it's often the intent that's as important as what happens on the day. So we had a race in Saturday. We've talked before about Abolish, haven't we? And how that horse had been laid out for the Ayr meeting, the Silver Cup he ran in the end. And he ran quite well in the Silver Cup, finished 8th, probably did a little bit too much too soon, and he ran again at Ripon last week. And because he'd run at Ayr and because I thought Ayr was the big day, I basically only had a FOMO bet on him. But he won at Ripon, exactly like the horse I thought he was going to be at Ayr. But I had a lot less on him than I would have because I thought, Ayr was a big day.
Yeah.
But no, that horse had been laid out for the 17th of September.
Yeah.
So he's still interested on the 24th of September, isn't he?
Yeah, it's not as if they're going to go, oh, well, in that case, let's win him next week, but not bother.
Yeah, but my view on him had been coloured a little bit by him running in the Ayr Silver Cup and not maybe coming up quite to expectations. He shaped quite well. But yeah, so it cooled me on him just enough to mean that a horse I've been following all season was not as good a result as I hoped when he popped up.
Wonderful lessons there from Keith Melrose and Matt Gardner, the finest minds in the business. Let us know what your lessons are in the comments below. Please do. If you haven't already, by the way, do like, subscribe, and all that jazz. We've got a nice little community building in the comment section. Which is a thing no one's ever said about any article or any video ever in the history of anything. A nice community in the comments section. What a world. John Jenkins, good afternoon, good evening, good morning to you. Great show as always, Ross. Thank you, John. That's why you're always first off the bat with the comments. And he says, now it's been confirmed that Baid will miss the Arc. It looks like Luxembourg's to lose, with probably Torquator Tasso and Alpinista the main dangers. And John, you have been bang on the money so far this season. So Luxembourg, Torquator Tasso, Alpinista, combination TriCast and forecast perhaps for John. Chris Graham says, thanks for the show, lads. He said, I won't be the first person to ask you, Ross, are you a comedian? Yeah, but they're normally asked with a face of incredulity. And he said, the Kapow chicken at the Salutation in Doncaster is delicious and named not so much from when it goes in, but more when it comes out. So thanks for that, Chris. Jim Frater said his learning point was he's noticed 2-year-old horses from top owners with great breeding withdrawn earlier in the season for ground now having to have a run even on the same ground simply to get experience for the good end-of-year races. He says Royal Rhyme for Carl Burke and Shaker Bay was the one I caught the right side of, and he said he wouldn't bet to hear at Antipost for the Guineas because he thinks they may well go to France or Ireland, which is definitely a danger in that regard. Mark Armstrong says that was always a great show. He says we've cursed the Arc now. He says definitely no Baid. Can't see Adayar running over 1.5 miles after last year's Arc Bog, which perfect timing, Mark. You put this in 11 days ago, but it's been announced today. And he says for the Arc, it's got to be Onesto for Mark Armstrong. And big shout out to Evan Nierenberg for the world's greatest autocorrect. Love and respect to Dermatitis World, gentlemen.
Dermatitis World.
Brilliant.
Beautiful, wasn't it?
Is that what his mother used to call him? Is that is his Sunday name?
You'll get dermatitis. Well, yeah. He seems like a well moisturised man.
It was you couldn't have written that, and you would have gone, "Oh, get out! That's implausibly good."
It was chef's kiss.
Proper chef's kiss. That well done, Evan.
Any comment on the comments?
I'm disappointed that I disagree with John on the art because he's been right about so much.
He has.
Yeah. I'm at the point now where I'm like, oh, John thinks exactly the opposite from me, does he?
It's at the point where John is you're getting a job next year, I think.
Yeah, get him in.
The show. Get him in. John Jenkins, come on in. Not on this sofa, maybe in the karaoke booth. What's your karaoke standard, John? Let us know. But comments, karaoke standards, analysis, tips, whatever you want, put them in the comment section. We'll read them out in next week's show. Let's have a look back at last week's action then, with the 2-year-olds taking centre stage, starting to get some juvenile Group 1 action at the back end of the season. And all in all, they didn't disappoint. And we had 4, in particular, very nice races at Newmarket to go through. And luckily, our 2-year-old handicapper is back in the business. Matt Gardner. It was a big week for you. You returned off holiday on the Thursday.
Yep.
Straight baptism of fire.
Straight into it.
Straight into four big races, which are starting to tie up some of the form lines. Obviously, we get excited about those races. Punters at home will have been building them up, Buttercup. And did any of them live up to the excitement that we're building around the middle part, the Shewley Park?
Yeah, I mean, I think the pick of them for me was probably commissioning on the Friday.
Yep, Rockfell.
Yeah, she looks probably the best prospect out of the 4 winners. Kind of still pretty raw, pretty green. It's quite for the grade, it was quite a deep race. She just looks a really good middle distance, mile, 10 furlong, 3-year-old prospect. Yeah. She's kind of got that pedigree, the stamina on the dam side. She's by Kingman. She travels well, but she sort of sees out a race as well. So she sort of just ticks loads of the right boxes. And it was a really good time as well. I think you mentioned it as well. It was
the one of the 4 juvenile races that was a clear upgrade for me. I thought this is a really good race. It looked a good race beforehand. It felt a bit like like you were saying in your lesson earlier, one of those 2-year-old races where I'd be very surprised if the winner met many in behind again.
Yeah.
As, for example, Rage of Bambi has loads of speed, real high cruising speed, and might be better on it might be a bit more of a Commonwealth Cup horse next year.
Yeah.
Whereas commissioning, definitely that back end, that final furlong was just power.
She looks a proper kind of Guineas 10 furlong horse, I think, for next season.
It's got a good record at being working out really well, the Rockfell, hasn't it? Because there's no fillies Dewhurst, really. There's no 7 furlong Group 1 for these fillies, so the Rockfell tends to work out really well.
And to say it's got a good record, she's the highest rated, highest RPR for the last 10 years.
Really?
Yeah, 112. So level with Lazou, obviously in the Group 1. So really like her.
Yeah. Well, I think what I liked about it was that I had 4 or 5 horses in there that had won novices in really good times, had been upgraded. Rage of Bambi, the second, the Clipper Logistics horse, Eternal Eyes, had. It's one of those things that pre-race, it's only won a novice race at first, but the figure was really good. I was really impressed with the performance. It was one of the best on the card. And there was 2 or 3 others there as well. The variant horse that won at Salisbury, Examinius. There were quite a few horses who'd done very, very good figures in novice events, and she blew them away. Yeah,
it looked good for form kind of in the book, but also for potential. There was definitely a few that sort of arrived on the up there. She obviously had both, and she was far too good, wasn't she? So definitely mark her down for sure.
On the other end of the scale, I get the feeling that the Royal Lodge was farcical. Would farcical? I think farcical.
Yeah, I think so. It was just a real mess about it. It was a speed test, which isn't what you want from a Royal Lodge, really, is it? You're aiming these horses at those races because you think that they're stamina based, whereas the horse that won it was the best suited by the speed test. The other 3 were just not quick enough to get out of each other's way, basically. And his relative experience and speed sort of stood him in good stead. He's probably fairly promising, but it's definitely kind of at the lower end of the Royal Lodge standards for the last sort of 10 years or so.
Yeah,
for sure.
And you made an interesting point. Again, part of the problem, you have a mile Group 2 at the back end at Newmarket. Like you said, you want a stamina test, but with other alternatives, you end up with small fields, which is, like you said, Champagne Stakes has now become that kind of year on year. And you start to think, are there any genuine back-end stamina tests for the 2-year-olds, apart from maybe Doncaster?
Yeah.
Because everything can have their own little target.
Yeah, I mean, that one, the Beresford's on the same day. The Champagne Stakes had a 7 furlong and a mile option over in Ireland as well. So in terms of kind of like diversifying the pool, as it were, it doesn't really work. I know Aidan O'Brien sent Greenland over, but he's not one of their better ones by any means. The
thing is, when it comes to O'Brien, he's not sending his best and brightest over here for many. That it's more of a recce. It's kind of, let's see how, this is 5th and 6th in our pecking order. We're going to go and win our group race at Leopardstown of the Curragh, so let's send the scout, as it were, from the stable to go and see how good they are.
Yeah, exactly that. And it just he's got so many options and so many horses. He just opens up his options best he can.
Yeah. But as for the two in the middle, if Commissioning's at the top, the Foxes at the bottom, I personally would have put maybe Lazoo followed by Blackbeard in terms of kind of quality of the race. I think Blackbeard looks a promising type. He obviously represented a sire that is knocking him in left, right and centre. But, that's 8 runs for Blackbeard.
Yeah.
This season.
The Coventry was his 4th run. Yeah. When I noticed when I looked him up. You know.
Although, admittedly, over the past couple of seasons, a lot of O'Brien horses who do blossom as 3-year-olds were heavily campaigned as 2-year-olds.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure as many were, 3 runs before Ascot heavily campaigned. I know what you mean. Some of was Love a bit like that, or one of those.
Mother Earth, Snowfall.
Yeah, exactly. But I think there was a lot of August, September runs.
Yeah.
Possibly a lot of these.
Not quite so top heavy. Yeah.
Try to find a back end 2-year-old bit of black type campaign rather than, Blackman, who was literally he's the Coventry horse.
Yeah.
He's a rare. Well, I say rare because this season actually, again, we had the Brocklesby winner in 3rd, so it has kind of been where that form has been confirmed. And you weren't here, Matt, you disgraceful human being, for a couple of weeks ago where we were talking about that. I thought Doncaster might be the time where the early season 2-year-old form gets usurped, and it wasn't. It was confirmed on the most part, and that seems to be happening. That happened at the weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean, Blackbeard's an interesting. When he talks about the O'Brien pecking order, they're kind of pretty good at getting it right most of the time. And for him to be their Coventry horse was, I think they, like you mentioned a while ago, they sort of realised close to Royal Ascot that Little Big Bear was probably the better one. But, Blackbeard, I think in a way this helps him out a little bit because I don't think he's a juvenile, but I think he looks a sprinter. Yeah. Whereas Little Big Bear, they can kind of go the other way with him, sort of 7 furlongs to a mile. It sort of helps them for next year a little bit. I don't think it was a strong renewal in the middle part, given we didn't have Noble Star, we didn't have Little Big Bear, kind of the 2 best sprinting juveniles.
And Marshman got kind of, it was a
track maybe. Yeah, he didn't really seem to handle it that well.
Which was the case for a few horses. I mean, we'll come to the Sheep Clock in a minute, but yeah, I felt Show Along was suited by York and maybe went a bit quick at Newmarket. Trillium, in contrast, a keen going last to first horse is not what you want at Newmarket. It wasn't suited by the track, so there were quite a lot of horses who'd set a standard elsewhere who, for often contrasting reasons, didn't fire at the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Blackbeard, he's pretty tough, he's pretty reliable. He's improving. It's taken him a little while to maybe get to the level that they anticipated he'd get to, but throughout what has, like you say, been a tough campaign, he has sort of got there in the end. You mentioned Lazoo. I think she probably is a 2-year-old. She doesn't look that big. She's pretty speedy, and that kind of won her the race against Meditate, really, who probably wants 7 furlongs, maybe even a mile. I think the Cheveley Park is probably short on 3-year-old prospects. A lot of those look juvenile types. Apart from maybe the 5th, there's a Beckett horse, Juliet Sierra, who physically stood out in that field, and she did at Salisbury when she won that Group 3 as well. And that's kind of what you're looking for a little bit. You're all well and good saying that Lazoo won this because she's that juvenile type, but you're also looking for the horses for next year, and the 5th maybe is the one out of that race.
Yeah. Okay. So that's you would take Juliet Sierra. Juliet Sierra, future prospect.
Yeah, I think Meditate maybe might do a little bit better for a trip next year, but I don't think many of those are going to be leaving behind their juvenile form next season.
In terms of 2-year-old races, one man who wasn't in winning form was Charlie Appleby, who didn't win any of the feature juvenile races at the weekend, but has been banging winners in left, right and centre. 13 winners in the past fortnight. One man has ridden 12 of them. So that's William Buick. He's 12 from 20, Buick, on Appleby horses. Other jockeys are 1 from 16, which begs the question, is Buick fantastic? Is Appleby fantastic? Or are they the greatest team since Wales in the West, or whoever it was that won the racing league?
Whoever it was that won the racing league. But yeah, I mean, it's we know about Godolphin, we mentioned it before, they're very good, they take their work very seriously, so they're very good at getting the pecking orders right at home, like Ballydoyle. And it's also a little bit like, we used to always get told, Phil Turner, our old colleague of ours, he'd always talk about how Willie Carson's great skill was picking the right Dick Hearn horse.
Yeah.
And it seems that Buick does the same with Appleby, he always picks the right one.
But why? I mean, so he picks the right one because they are clearly a close-knit team. It's not. Whereas when you drafted as another jockey, Pat Dobbs gets the call. It's not like, oh, I've ridden this in work for weeks. I know exactly what their quirks are. For example, there was a comment after which Appleby horse was it? It was Siskany, I think it was. Who they said loves cover. Buick buried it down the rail until the very last moment. Switched out and made the challenge. I mean, you might get that message as a jockey coming in, oh, by the way, he loves cover, but it's not in there, is it?
No, there's that, and Buick's got the confidence to do it as well, because he knows tomorrow he's also on the horse.
Yeah.
You know, he can ride with that confidence that anything that goes wrong, I'm not going to suffer for this necessarily. You know,
there's a security there.
There is, you know, he's not. Him and Appleby must be that team to that extent. He's not going to get the tin tack if it goes wrong. So you know, we see that a little bit with Racing League. Actually, we saw people that I had a thought about this, and because it was a captain that was deciding who got the ride and not the owners necessarily. Jockeys who knew they weren't going to get in the first 6 were a little bit happier to set up. Because whether or not they got the ride next time was down to something else other than the owners being happy. And actually, it's probably more of a benefit because they'd be like, look, I know I'm not getting around next time, but we're not going to sneak up a couple of pounds because I, tried my best for 4th. Exactly. So it's having that confidence through a completely different mechanism. Yeah, probably what makes Buick so good. Yeah. Although Appleby 2-year-olds. You've got some. I mean, this is a whole list of painful SPs. That they've been beaten at, and like you said, 2-year-olds turned up at skinny prices. Castleway, Mischief Magic, Flying Honours, Regal Honour, Victory Dance, High Bank, Appointed One, Tabaretta. Earlier in September, Silver Knot, Art of Magic, Modern Dancer, Courageous Knight. Partly because they have so many 2-year-olds, some of them are going to get turned over, obviously. And the market, they don't control the market, and the market does immediately put in the best bred Appleby newcomer or 2-year-old at 3 points shorter than anyone else's would be. Yeah, absolutely. And 101 of pricing up a race, if you speak to any trader, it's how they do it. Yeah, and I mean, it was one of those where I got sort of set off by that Castleway at Epsom at the weekend, and you kind of start seeing a few, and you just kept looking, and there was more and more and more. And I mean, there was probably only one that I thought was too short, and that was the one that got beat. Flying Honours. Yeah, Flying Honours, that was it. 2-7 or whatever. He was probably too short relative to form, but the rest of them you could kind of go, fair enough. Yeah. But it's, I mean, he's still having a heck of a lot of winners, but there's obviously there must be something in that in terms of his leading 2-year-old prospects for sure. Yeah. In other news at Newmarket, big win for Mick Shannon in the Cambridgeshire Majestic. Watch out for all you Cambridgeshire winners in bumpers this autumn for flat trainers. Definitely worth keeping an eye on. We had a lot of other winners. And most of them trained by Charlie Hills. And horses that I have backed 3, maybe 4 times earlier on in the season, who all came together in a glut, which is going to happen again. Big lesson in racing is it's easy to spot one. It's hard to find when they actually pop up. Tell me about it. Oh, it's just painful. Equality is the one. Quality's been in my tracker since the spring. Yeah. And he shaped well in racing. He was in my tracker since he was foaled. He shaped well in Racing League races and all that. He won in that race at Haydock on Saturday, and there was 5 tracker horses of mine in that race. Horses that flagged for, don't want to miss them next time. Yeah. And he was 5-1 overnight, so I didn't back him, and he's returned at 17-2 and won like he has. Everything went right for him in that race. Yeah. But you're convinced that's a Group 1 horse, aren't you? I'm not quite at that level. Well, basically, he won a 2-year-old novice at Wolverhampton in the speed figure that I thought, my dear God, like this has got. I mean, I'm not surprised. He's fast as hell. He is. He's got, and again, when he got into that rhythm, he rattled around Wolverhampton and was able to do exactly what he wanted. Nothing hassled him, and it was like, this is pure ability. This is
raw speed. This would be incredible if you can harness this. The problem is he then went into 16 runner handicaps and had to be drawn out on the wing on a straight course, and he would blow the start. He would get worked up because he's clearly the thing with raw. It's fine when you get a sports car, you go 0 to 60, great. Yeah, that's fine if it's on a straight track, but if I'm driving around the Leeds ring road, trying to find me exit, doesn't do you a lot of good, does it? And that's what I found with equality was he would be put into situations where that raw speed and ability was only one component, and it's taken him 6, 7, 8 runs to learn the other components. He was a true professional the weekend.
He ran in a group of 3 though, and got a great total off show me, and pulled out. Everything went right for him. On having nothing gone right for him all season, all of a sudden everything went right for him. But Charlie Hill's generally, like in the past, I'd have been a little bit, right, it's Charlie Hill's this, so I'm watching out for a little bit with the form coming out of the blue a little bit and all that. But we looked at Hill's, it's a different yard this year, isn't it? Hill's yard. Although we say that, I looked at his overall strike rate through every season before this one, and it's like 13%. And if you put his record this season, which as of yesterday was 57 from 333, into what it's a daft maths thing, but James Willoughby showed me it's the binomial distribution, which if you know the fixed probability of something.
You're going to say that slower for the viewers, I think. You said
it's called it's the binomial distribution.
Binomial distribution.
Basically what it is, if you know the fixed probability of something happening, you can put in a sample and it tells you how unlikely that sample is.
Okay.
So for a trainer that's got a 13% strike rate, which was Hill's before this season,
and there's a
57 out of 333, that's a 50s chance to turn up.
Yeah.
He's a 50 to 1 chance to have the season like he's having on pure chance. Definitely an improving yard. However, you told me you looked it up. Usually when a yard improves like this, you try and go, is there a new assistant? Are they doing something different? And you said there's nothing, didn't you?
I've not found anything to suggest that they're doing anything notably different.
I think what I saw yesterday backs it up, because his strike rate is actually, he's 17% this season. He was 16 last year, 16 the year before, and like 12s and 11s before that. So Charlie Hill's is
just got better.
He's just got better. There's no like magic ingredient here. We like to think there's a magic ingredient. Charlie Hill's has just become a better trainer in the last 3 years.
But did we edit? I can't remember if we edit. This is the thing. You talk about so much
that gets cut out because it's nonsense.
Yeah, well, it's not nonsense. It's just kind of, it's hard to know, because there's stuff that's relevant from the weekend, there's stuff that's relevant for this weekend, and then there's the slightly more amorphous stuff that is kind of, like a general learning.
Yeah.
And I said, definitely recorded it at some point early on this season.
Yeah, because Ed Walker was in there as well.
Yeah, there's Ed Walker, Hugo Palmer, and Charlie Hills, who've been doing this for a decade now. Mm-hmm. And, the whole Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing, or just a general, there's a certain amount of time when it all just comes together.
Especially, and especially with Hills, he took over from his dad, and maybe Barry was still involved, and maybe getting it right how he wanted it and what worked for him has taken him this long. But Charlie Hills used to be a trainer whose horses went for an awful lot of money at the horses and training sales, but now they don't so much. He's just a better trainer than he was.
Yeah. The Hills thing, so probably about 3 years ago, I looked into how horses progress, sort of first start to second start to third start, then into nurseries. And his record did surprise me, actually, because it suggested you knew what he was doing in terms of that improvement curve, whereas some trainers either flatline or they kind of regress. Thinking back, the signs probably were there back then, and that tallies with your strike rate improvement. So.
Well, that's the thing. If you're, again, football analogy. If you're right, we need to get a result this season, versus. This is a project over 5 years. Well, we're going to build in. We're going to bring in youth. We're going to get our systems going. We're going to get the training ground sorted. We're going to build a strategy on the pitch that people buy into.
Klopp at Liverpool was exactly like that in a lot of ways, wasn't he? The fans were patient with him because he saw he was buying players for all his positions. Yeah, and getting it.
And clearly Charlie Hills said, look, it's not a flash in the pan. Yeah, it's a training dynasty. Yeah. He's not thinking, I'll give this training log a go. No, he's thinking probably from the age of 10. That's my entire future. So it's okay to.
But the pressures are different as well, aren't they, and all that sort of stuff.
Even if you're around
the pressures are different, aren't they? Yeah. In terms of his setup compared to Ham Trainer, who goes in with 10 horses and.
Well, it's the same thing as the same with Buick. It's a security. It's like no one's going to turn around and go, Charlie, get out, or replace you with somebody else. I'm taking all the horses and moving them. Yeah. He can say, I've got a 10-year plan, and that's what I'm aiming for.
And next year, so you think Equality is next year's Cadam, don't you?
I think it's a Cardem / magical memory kind of / not only Hills horses, but the Tin Man's kind of, those sprinters that...
I'm looking forward to the group sprinters trying to get him off the bridle.
Yeah.
Which is going to be fun to watch.
I mean, so what have we got? We've got the Goodwood King George, what's a red hot 5 furlongs.
Unfortunately, he didn't seem to handle Epsom in the dash. He got a little bit, I don't think he was about a little C in the dash. He finished third in it possibly, didn't he? But
but I'm looking at Temple Stakes and Nunthorpe's and...
Yeah. Well, the Temple Stakes is the one they're probably thinking of now because he's won on his ear at Haydock.
Yeah. Okay. And other Hills horses, Galaron was a nice winner of a big pot over in Ireland. He's got some good 2-year-old form. Obviously, was beaten behind Marban at Goodwood and did some good figures early on and comes out of a good sales race. Wanis, who everyone was all over at Glorious Goodwood and Royal Ascot to a slightly less extent, he's put it all together as well. So he's clearly having a cracking time of it, and it feels like a project that's coming to fruition rather than a fluke this year.
Yeah, definitely. From when I looked at the stats yesterday, I thought, this isn't just somebody who's changed overnight. This is somebody who's now got it.
Yeah. Other things to mention, we're going to start a thing called Autumn Watch, I think, from next week, where we look at horses that we're going to follow from this autumn that might well progress. A few I had from last week, Azure Blue for Michael Dodds, I thought could easily progress into being a pattern class sprinter next year as well. I thought Super Chief was really nice. He still doesn't know what the hell he's doing, but he managed to win the Newmarket Whip pretty impressively.
Azure Blue was a bit like that as well, wasn't she? She just going into the dip, didn't know what she was doing, hit the rising ground, and it's like you set a jet engine off.
Yeah, because I was watching that race thinking, she's missed the kick, she's got no chance at this track, and she battered two good horses.
We made a lot of references this year to slow burning Yorkshire sprinters, haven't we? This is one in real time. Yeah. I'm not going to say she's going to be Highfield Princess.
But she might be.
Because you never know where the ceiling is with these Dodds Quinn horses, do you?
Yeah, Mecca's Angel, Mab's Cross.
Yeah, where's the ceiling? We don't know. And especially given that she's a sprinter, to win at group level, she's probably aiming at a slightly lower target than if she was a 10 furlong horse.
Yeah. She could be, your, what's the Diadem? No, what's the early 6 furlong Newmarket?
Abernan, is that the...
Abernan, yeah. So she could be interesting. I thought Eternal Pearl as well looked at one of those fillies and mares just in rattling form. Anything from the autumn?
He's doing 2-year-olds. It's all autumn watch.
It's all autumn watch
for me, yeah.
The
track is going to be overflowing in a month.
We'll make a note. Next week, I want a dossier.
Assignment for next week. You've been set some homework.
That's it.
Can I have your fun facts?
You can absolutely have my fun facts. I'll give you a little sticker out of it if you like. Yeah. All right, lovely stuff. Autumn Watch, get involved. Put your horses that you've spotted this autumn that are going to improve to be horses to follow next year. Anything else before we wrap up?
There's one wee thing. Obviously, the wet weather has been quite late in coming this year, and I watched the sprints at Newmarket and at Haydock, and all of a sudden the rail was like massive. Is that just Haydock and Newmarket, or is that the weather? I'm still not, because it's my first year doing the sprinters in the depth, and rails matter so much more to sprinters.
Yeah.
It's my first year doing them properly, and I'm not 100% certain whether it is the tracks, because I've seen rail biases at Haydock and Newmarket before.
Well, but you're right. Traditionally, it does kind of get a little bit worse back end in the sense of, for example, there's a couple of years where the Middle Park or the Cheveley Park was won by a horse who just bagged our rail and kept going. I mean, the obvious one that springs to mind is, your Catrix. It's kind of like, what month is it? Right.
Yeah.
All the way over to this near side. So
your answer is it's a bit of both. Thanks,
yeah.
Mate. Yeah. Thanks, mate.
Yeah. You don't want to be down the middle?
No, you definitely don't on some of the weekends evidence at Haydock.
Yeah. Okay. That's it. Let's move on. Now it's time for this week's Hot List. As we said, we're recording in the corner of the box this week. So, sorry, Keith and Matt, but cue graphics. This week's 3 big races to watch out for. The Lose Yourself Novice won at Newmarket by an interesting Rafe Beckett newcomer. Has thrown up winners left, right and centre. Conservationist, Ananda and Scallywag Bay have all come out and franked that form. It looks a warm 2-year-old novice race, and it's worth following those that haven't run or who are entered over the next week or so. Scallywag Bay is entered at Salisbury later on in the week, and Juliana Popjoy goes for that 3rd run for a handicap later on as well, so keep an eye on that. Gale Force Meyer keeps on winning, as she did on a penultimate start at York. That race has thrown up winners, including Gale Force Meyer going in again, and Judicial bolting up last time out as well for Julie Camacho. A few entered this week: Primo Baccio, Ventura Diamond, and Gale Force Meyer could well go for the Bengough Stakes at Ascot on Saturday. And finally, Sophosk. We were talking about those Racing League races throwing up winners. That one at Southwell has thrown up plenty. The winner, the second and the third have gone in, and even old Tommy G, who was beaten out of sight, went on to win next time out as well. The horse beaten into second or third, I'm trying to remember now, is Natche Trace, who's won since and goes to Nottingham and is a soft ground informed Declan Carroll back-end winner, which is offered the angle for future profits. There are your 3 hot list races for the week. Good luck with those. Matt, Keith, any thoughts?
Bingo.
Good luck. A big week ahead. What a week. What a weekend. We're off to Longchamp. Not literally. Some of us might be, but I'm not. I've been way too many times. And as much as I love a cheap can of Kronenberg and a poulet baguette, it's just not the same anymore since they made it into a real racecourse and not a ramshackle selection of huts with Group 1 racing, which it was for a few years. But have fun if you are going, and don't forget to stand at Port Mayo, and you'll see every single British racegoer, and you can jump in the back of the cab with them. It's great. You don't even have to pay for a taxi. Don't ask. Just get in the cab with them. Pick a racing journalist. They won't mind. They genuinely won't mind. Apologies if you do this and someone punches you in the nose. But it's going to be a great weekend. Not the Bide curtain fall that we were hoping for in the Arc, and no Adyar as of this morning as well. So it's potentially looking like it could be a 4 or 5 runner race. But who's going to win it? That is the question. In terms of who's going to win it, I've found over the past few years, it's a question. It's not even that I don't even want to try and answer it in a weird way. It's a race that I love to watch, and it is genuinely an incredible coming together of bloodlines and age groups and racing jurisdictions and everything. But it kind of gives me a headache to try and figure out the form these days. And it's such an incredible spectacle that I almost don't want to put a financial pressure on it.
I get what you mean. It's a bit like almost like the Grand National in a sense.
Yeah, in a weird way, yeah.
There's a bit of there's a cachet to getting the winner of the Arc, but really, I mean, it's not about that so much. It's about the spectacle. And I think the whole meeting of the Arc, if it was held at Ascot instead of Longchamp, we would have no problem calling it what it is, which is the Cheltenham of the flat season.
Yeah.
So much coming together there.
But we just don't. Is it just we don't want to give that to the French racing? Yeah, that's basically it.
Basically, we don't
xenophobia, right?
Yeah, it is. It's the flip side of that is, it's protectionism. We don't want to acknowledge that the best meeting in the world happens in France.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
but it's great. I've never been. I'm going this weekend. It's my first Arc, so I'm really excited.
There you go. If you see Keith, jump in the cab with him. He's a fairly noticeable chap. Go, oi, Melrose, and then love the flat pack. And then just jump in the cab.
You'll find them a lot swearier when there's not a camera running.
Yeah, you are, yeah. So be prepared for being told to F off by Keith Melrose. But you're going this weekend?
Yeah, on Saturday and Sunday. I'm told it's chalk and cheese,
yeah,
totally different. So I'm looking forward to both.
Yeah, it's yeah. You'll be lucky to see anyone else there on the Saturday.
Yeah, I believe that's the case. It's just it's a French meeting.
Yeah,
just a standard French meeting on the Sundays, but it's on tour.
It's everyone who's there on the Sunday is on the Eurostar on the Saturday rather than at the track, I think. Yeah. The Arc, Matt Gardner. You were about to say something before.
Yeah, just sort of, well, you instead of it tying everything together, it does that kind of perfectly at the end of the season, doesn't it? 3-year-olds, older horses, 10 furlong, 12 furlong, milers we might have had, but we're not going to get
there was a spell where the 2-year-old races were the best as well. The Jean-Luc Lagardère could be hit and miss now, but the Marcel Boussac still is one of the best for these 2-year-old races.
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah. And in terms of, like I said, I try and dig into it, and it's not even trying to find an angle. It's just kind of like there's several horses who've got chances. I don't know what I want to win. I don't know whether I want the 3-year-olds to confirm. Not confirm, actually, deny what everyone else has been saying. People saying, they're a good 3-year-old crop. I think all season people have been denying the 3-year-old crop, and they keep coming back with a bit of a vengeance.
It's not an awful lot to beat.
No.
A lot of the time. And the thing what Cheltenham doesn't have is you don't have Japanese horses at Cheltenham. You don't have horses, British and Irish form comes together, but that's it.
It would be great if the Nakayama Grand Jump was the best angle for a
and they say we're going to go to the Gold Cup next. Wouldn't that
would
be
be good.
That would be genuinely excellent. But we don't, you've got the Melbourne Cup winner in here. You've got these Japanese horses coming across. Titleholder's probably going to be the most interesting horse in the race.
Yeah.
Because anyone who hasn't seen how Titleholder races, he just blasts off.
Yeah.
Just goes, it's like Pipe and Scudamore in the 90s. And the reason it's really hard to win an art doing that, because I've never been to Longchamp, but I've done it on Google Earth loads of times. From the point where they cross the straight course.
I can just imagine you telling people, "Oh, have you been to Longchamp before?" No, but I know it.
I know it.
I know it
very
inside
well.
out.
I know it inside out. I've walked the track in my mind. So when they cross the straight track on the Grand Piste or whatever it's called, and go up to the far bend, it's 2.5 furlongs and they climb about 30 feet. Do you know what else is about 2.5 furlongs and climbs 30 feet? Cheltenham Hill. No, sorry, I know. I cut you off there because I knew where that was. I knew what you'd do.
I thought, is this a Chubby Brown joke? I don't know what.
What's 2.5 furlongs long and rises 30 feet? Well, God said no.
Don't answer that.
Don't answer that. No, the Cheltenham Hill was the same sort of length and rise of that run to the start of the bend at Longchamp. So if you want to do your hard work there, then best of luck to you lads. So it's going to be a totally different race to Titleholder. I even did my Google Earth in round Han Shin, where he does a lot of his running, and that's flat. There's a couple of wee bit, but it's basically flat Han Shin.
Yeah.
Whereas Longchamp's totally different.
Gets masked by the way races get run generally through the French season, doesn't it? In terms of the steady sprint stuff. Whereas that, if you get racing a bit further out on that sort of rise, it's going to be a big difference.
Definitely, it's got a lot to do there.
A stiff finish doesn't matter if you are jogging.
Yeah.
Does it? But if you've gone full pelt throughout,
Chantilly's actually a really stiff finish, but nobody knows that because they don't race until 2 furlongs out.
Yeah.
Another thing to notice with we talk about how French races are run, also how French horses are built up. You've talked about this before as well. It's like it's always prep run, big race, break, prep run. And so replays are a big thing. And for anybody watching that's not already on there, you go on France Gallo's site. And you can sign up for free. You get all the French replays, and that's your week.
Yep,
that's your week now finished.
Yeah, and I used to love doing that because you would unearth all sorts of things, and it's incredibly enjoyable to do. But it's essentially a week-long full-time job.
Yeah. But it's also like a slightly different language because of the way the races are run and the way horses are campaigned. You find you've got to read it slightly differently.
Yeah.
And it's part of the reason I've not totally given up on Vadeni. I backed him at 12s a few weeks ago. He's about 9s now, so I've not exactly got massive value.
Yeah.
But the way he ran in that Irish Champion Stakes, it was a bit of a French prep run, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Luxembourg, why is he half the price of Luxembourg? Luxembourg was ready to run for his life.
Yeah.
And Vadeni would have been a usual, and I'm kicking myself for backing him before it now, to be honest, a bit. Because it was never going to be the Irish Champion Stakes, it was going to be the British Champion Stakes. Because a lot of French horses get campaigned at that, or it was going to be the Arc.
Yeah, it wasn't his end game, was it?
But they said it was the end game, so that I think that infiltrated into your. They said the one thing we definitely are doing. We don't know whether it's Arc or Ascot, but it is Irish Champion. So then in your head you're like, oh, that's a target. But they're thinking, what they're actually saying is, we don't know which race we want to win, but we know which one's the prep.
Yeah, because that's it's a bit. They're never going to change from the first one's the prep.
Yeah,
that is rule one.
Yeah.
So I'm kicking myself for backing him at that point, and it's why I think he's definitely the bet relative to Luxembourg.
Yeah. Okay.
I know, and apologies to John Jenkins. Sorry, John.
Yeah, sorry, John Jenkins. Also, apologies to any amateur xylophone players who are thinking, that guy in the background's awful. I could do better than that. So I think we should have got we should have done the karaoke machine instead. But it's the joy of as live broadcasting. Right now you can't see it, but there's a whole bus full of people right there, all looking at us, going, "What are you doing? That's not a real job." And they're right. As for the rest of the Longchamp card, dramatised in the Abai.
Dramatised.
You've just put how many O's? You've just put ooh.
It's like that script where John Cleese writes spoons on it, and he's now on cricket. Spoons.
It's exactly like that.
Exactly
I think Matt was about to make the same reference actually.
Were you?
Probably not.
Okay.
No, probably not. No, yeah.
Is this excitement, or have you fallen asleep on the keyboard? Which was?
It was quite late. It was quite late. No, exciting. Well, I mean, mixed a little bit because obviously they're dropping in trip. I'm not convinced they're going to achieve what they hope to achieve by doing that. but
What, winning the race?
no, in terms of the whole, she didn't stay 6 furlongs and all that sort of thing.
I'm really hoping she gets drawn in 1 for your benefit now. Because how tempted will you be if she gets drawn right on on that rail?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She'll be off.
Yeah. I mean, I still think she's really good, really talented. They obviously know better than I do, but a 2-year-old hasn't won the race since the early 70s, I don't think.
Is that right?
Yeah, so, it'd be a big old record she'd be breaking. So, yeah, we'll see. Looking forward to seeing her if they do run by.
And
anyway.
I had a quick look at the straight course on Google Earth while I was there, and like the first 2 furlongs are slightly downhill, and that's why it's like the race it is. It's all about blasting out, getting that rail, and there's not the penalty on that extra early effort that you would think, because it's slightly downhill for the first 2 furlongs. So you're best burning a bit of energy just to get that position, because you've done it with a lesser penalty. So that's why the Derby's like it is. It's a proper draw and speed race, isn't it?
I think they won it last Air de Vals or whatever it was that ran. Yeah, all speed, and basically just hasn't looked that good or threatened to look that good since. So yeah.
Are you going to make the journey to watch the Abai? You've got to go under.
Apparently,
the
apparently that's something you do. Maybe I am. I'll have to see.
Because they mess around with the long shot car. I think they used to change when it was every year.
As of the Saturday card, the Saturday race order's not settled yet, as I checked last night.
They just make it up every year.
Like Sunday's been done. They must have done like ITV, or for some reason they've got the Sunday order nailed, but Saturday's just like off you go.
Yeah, and of course it was the year when.
Are the Cadran guys ready? Yeah, off you go.
Yeah. When's the Cadran again? We haven't decided yet. It's midday on the Saturday. But they used to, obviously there was the year when the Abai when Overdose won it. And then they just kind of went, when should we run it again at what? What time should we run it again? They didn't really announce it on track. It was almost like, they're amassing. It was just, I just remember thinking, what's happening? Oh, they're running it after the handicap or something at 4:00. And I was like, oh right, do we have a time? And it's like 4:20-ish.
It is sort of amazing that for a premium sprint they haven't sorted out the cameras either as well. They just go,
no, that's true.
Yeah.
But I like that. This is the thing. I do quite like that.
Not being able
laissez-faire attitude, as it were.
Not being able to see anything.
You'll fit right in.
Yeah, that's because I have a je ne sais quoi. Other things on the weekend, it's hard to, because they don't even know when the races are running, so we don't even know who's running in the races.
It's hard, like you look at the 4A entries, it's like that's not going to run, surely that's not going to run, that's not going to run.
Yeah.
But the race when it comes, I mean, in the old days we knew one master would run.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But these days are not.
Kinross then, isn't it?
He's surely it's his race, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he's the one you're going. He's running.
Or Sacred.
It's a bend, mate. It's bends.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's just the other day we weren't on when Sacred won, so we couldn't scream into the void. Elsewhere though, it's a great weekend of UK racing as well. We've got Newmarket, we've got Ascot, we've got Redcar, we've got the Sun Chariot Group 1 at Newmarket. We've got the 2-year-old Trophy, the Straight Mile Championship. We've got the 48th Heritage 7 furlong handicap of the season at Ascot, the Bengoff Stakes, the Roost Stakes, sprinters galore for you. 2-year-olds over at Redcar for you.
Yep.
3-year-old fillies for
Mile and fillies for whoever wants mile and fillies every week.
Yeah.
Just
Jane Chapel-Hyam, who's like, please don't, just let us keep winning these races.
I mean, she's the good one, isn't she? There's usually there's all these races for these horses. There's usually one Group 1 horse among them at any one time. And Saffron Beach is that horse at the moment, and she's great.
I'll be doing what I always do in backing Prosperous Voyage, 90% place, 10% win every time she runs at Newmarket.
Okay.
So that's the angle. Beaten last time out. He's comfortably beaten last time out. It's come in. It's fine. Do you have an opinion at Newmarket?
What's going to win the Arc?
What's going to win the Arc? No, never mind. No opinion. It's Prosperous Voyage for me. And Amici in the sales race.
Yep, really liked him, didn't we? Both really strong in him. Different Newmarket, different track to what he won the previous sales race on.
True.
But
he seemed to win in spite of that Newmarket.
Showed stamina and speed, which is kind of what you need for both of those. So
that was that Funhouse?
Stamina, speed is everything you need. Is it? Was it?
No, I
don't know.
Yeah. No, he's not old enough, is he?
No, he won't be. You won't remember Funhouse. You wouldn't even remember Pat Sharp.
No, I don't.
That was beautiful though. If you are is it Lawrence Bellman, I think, who owns Amici?
Yeah.
If he does become a Group 1 performer and you want the tagline, so stamina and speed.
Royalties to
Matt Gardner,
me.
yeah.
It's your body and your brain if you want to play the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The
He's
Oso.
totally lost. It's weird. It's like having my daughters in here. You know.
Yeah. If your daughters are like us, that's disturbing.
Yeah, they're not like you, luckily.
Yeah, fair enough.
Good.
But might win the Oso Pat Sharp Stakes. Now, Amici, yeah, I think it's a different new market. It's a different sales race, double the prize money, but he looked
real good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mopping up the prize money in the sales races before going for a group contest.
Yep. We should mention the Redcar race, the 2-year-old trophy.
Yep.
Cold Case kind of sets the standard in that, really. He's got good... He ticks all right.
I think kind of is a bit... I think comfortably, doesn't he?
Yeah. But he ticks right boxes for that in terms of he's got the forming a similar level, but also the pattern race form. He was third in the Dream Character, wasn't he, or whatever. There are some horses with potential in there. There's Russet Gold, and I did write another one down. Prairie Falcon as well, a horse who's had quite a lot of racing for one that you think's still going to do better, but he just keeps blowing the start. And if he sorts that out, then I think he can kind of be ideal for this. But yeah, Cold Case is the one that they're gonna have to beat.
I want to talk about the Ascot Sprints. I want to talk about because there's a couple of things for Ben Goff for a start.
Yeah.
You've got fifth, third, and second in the last 3 years. Have gone on to finish second, and first in the Champions Sprint.
So it's not just the French who have a prep race, actually. Then.
No, it's not.
This is a clear Champions Sprint.
The Ben
prep.
Goff Stakes is now a prep for the what did the Champions Sprint used to get called? The the D, didn't it?
The Diomed. No.
The Diamond. No, Diamond is at Epsom.
Diadem.
It was a diadem. Anyway, it's now a prep run for that. So this year, watch out again for the big. I don't know what's going to run on it. Creative Force is going to run this weekend. Something we know. He's in the
Rohan,
40.
maybe.
Rohan could run it. He's in the Abbey, him as well, I noticed. But Creative Force is in the Abbey. Not the Abbey. He's in the
Rouse.
The Rouse.
Rouse.
Burning down because it's the burning down the Rouse is the thing, and I can do the. Is that a karaoke classic?
That's a karaoke. Well, it's it'd work.
Tom Jones in the Cardigans version.
Yeah, it's not unusual for anyone to do it. Yeah.
But yeah, so he's in the Rouse and he's in the 40. He's in the Ben Goff. So he's going to run in one of them. But the Rouse, it's what was the commentator called? Canny LUFC mentioned Ainsdale.
Yes.
Ages ago. And Ainsdale came up, ran a decent race in the Beverly Bullet, running up to his best form. He's been saved for something. And I watched last year's Ben Goff. He finished fourth at Ainsdale. Last off the bridle in the 6 furlong race, finished fourth. I think he was in front of Furlong Out. He's running in the Rouse this time. There's been a back end 5 furlong muddy race on his radar. We've got some purple rain forecast for. That was your gag. You're laughing derisively at your own gag there.
No, you made it. You made the.
Did I make the purple rain?
I mentioned the song at the start, but you made the gag.
Oh, did I? Right. Okay, so you're laughing derisively at my gag.
No, I wasn't. That was a genuine laugh.
Was it?
I know you're not used to that.
I know.
You're like, hang on a minute, what's this sound?
Sarcasm, sarcastic laughs,
Yeah.
humouring laughs from me.
I just wasn't expecting it. It came in beautifully.
But anyway, if that rain comes, it's two drops on the BBC website and everything. It's really heavy rain forecast. So the Rouse Stakes, bit of soft ground, Ainsdale, save for a back end 5 furlong race. Come on, Canny LUFC. Saturday's the day.
Ridden by Philip Prince, of course.
Do I have to give a non-derisive laugh to you?
You normally just go.
Yeah, I do that Mackay Pfeiffer meme, don't I? You know, where he's got the flag in his hand and he's giving it that.
If you like. And I thought Rohan looked the obvious Ben Goff to Champion Sprint.
Yeah, he's getting laid out for another go at Ascot, isn't he?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they think they need the run, actually. Or are they just going to, can we pick up a Group 3 on the way?
Well, he's run 28 times in the past 2 years, so why not, I guess.
A fair point.
Yeah. So the Ben Goff Stakes, the Roost Stakes, and Amateur Metalwork coming up straight afterwards.
I mean, it's the old dad joke of Sack the Juggler, that, isn't it? It's like an absolute classic Sack the Juggler one, that.
It is. It's well, I mean, I mentioned the Tin Man earlier on, didn't I? He's
he
fallen down behind us.
He wasn't one of the ones that had gone Ben Goff to Champion Stakes, surprisingly.
Was he not?
No, he'd run.
He'll have gone Haydock, won't he?
Yeah, but he's had years where he ran well in the Ben Goff, and in those years he didn't run well in the Champion Sprint, and years where he ran well in the Champion Sprint, but he hadn't run the Ben Goff.
Yeah.
Never the twain did meet. Okay. But he'd run well in both races.
Okay. Well,
different years.
We've got a couple of things to mention before we go and test the Rube Goldberg machine that someone's setting up behind us. We've got the 2-year-old trophy. I think Cold Case will.
Massive game of mousetrap going on in the kitchen.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And elsewhere, what else? What have we got elsewhere? There was one more thing I was going to mention.
I was going to mention Cumberland Lodge
Yes.
Ascot Saturday.
Really?
Yeah.
The Cumberland Lodge is interesting.
That's the complete
Well-
antithesis to Matt Gardner. That's
Yeah.
Cumberland
No,
Lodge.
with your market leaders, I thought.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. That's
Hamish and Secret State. Hamish coming out pretty fragile, coming out after having a real hard race against Kyprios. And Secret State's kind of underpriced on form.
Because, well, Appleby, Buick, Godolphin, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's not just the 2-year-olds.
Yeah. So Cresta, I thought was really interesting. Ran in some really good 3-year-old races earlier in the year. Won really impressively in that August Stakes at Windsor, taking on older horses for the first time. Kind of the first time he got into a properly run race at that trip, and he looks like we get that again here. So versatile with conditions. If it rains, he's got a good form on good to soft. So yeah, I thought he was round sort of 6-1, taking on like 6-4 Hamish. So yeah.
Yes, Hamish has to be 6-4 for the Cumberland Lodge, doesn't he? He just gets put in it
Automatically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's another one of those horses that's like, this is a Group 1 horse. So then whenever it runs anything lower...
We talk about Appleby, though, how they're always priced up short. Haggis is exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know, he's brilliant, but you can't make money backing him because everybody knows.
Yeah.
And Hamish is that sort of horse. Like, it's fragile anyway, but you see it over jumps. You know, if you run against like Energamine or something like that, and then you're knackered afterwards. Well, Kyprios is real good, and he had a real good race against him, and miles clear of the rest, and got beat. Like, this is a pretty quick turnaround for that. So I'd be keen to take him on.
Okay. And then there's, of course, a big 7 furlong handicap at Ascot, which I mean...
Fortunately, Raising Sand's already popped up.
Who has?
Raising Sand.
Yes,
He's already
true.
popped up this walk.
Lethal Nymph's in there, though.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And there's a lot of... I mean, the thing is with 7 furlong... The race that Fresh won last time out, I mean, I thought I went back and did the speed figure. I thought it was a Class 6 handicap at Lingfield because it's just slowly run, stop. They just... Every 7 furlong race at Ascot this season has been run in a completely different fashion to the previous one. So I don't know whether they're going to go hard, whether it's going to be a crawl, whether you want to be down the middle. The speed's down the rail, but everything comes down the middle. It is boggled my mind this year. So
Just about there's not many of them.
Exactly. Other things to mention before we wrap up. There are other races this week, of course. You mentioned the Cumberland Lodge. There was a horse that I noticed was entered at Salisbury this week, and in the interest of continuously falling in love with a different Judmont horse.
We've all done it.
I mean, I've done every week this. I mean, the colours of the whole programme are Judmont Silks. A horse called Bresson, who's entered in an event at Salisbury this week. A couple of novice events, 6 or 7, but won at very short odds at Yarmouth. Spectacular time for the grade. Barely came off the bridle. You're nodding like this could be a good one.
Yeah, it did look pretty good, didn't it? Yeah. I'd agree with that. The time of that race was good, and physically looked pretty good as well. So definitely a lot more to come there. Yeah.
Definitely worth a Jean-Luc at Bresson. That's a obscure French cinema reference there to end the show. That's just about it for the flat pack this time around. We've done well in a live environment, and we're going to end it, I think, with a rendition of "Don't Go Breaking My Heart" from you guys.
No, we're not.
No, just give a little go.
Long odds against them, I'm afraid.
Last show of the year, get us, you get us a few in, and then we can maybe do it, but not until then. Nobody does karaoke sober. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's what you're sober. Oh, I've made a mistake again. Thanks for watching. If you've got this far, please do like, subscribe, comment, send us a message on Twitter, find out where we live, knock on the door, I'll put the kettle on. And we'll see you next week for a fine-tooth comb through the Arc, which will be won by